What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. You don't like it, you can have that seat though.
Alright, so I feel like this is becoming a thing. And this is getting kind of silly at this point. So we know what's been happening with the backlash that Digital Foundry has been having regarding the Nintendo Switch 2. Some of the assumptions that they made about the Switch 2, they ended up being wrong. How they repeatedly still try to say, Switch 2 is PS4 level experience. Even though they're getting massive backlash, trust me. They're getting a lot of backlash on this. But for some reason, they're still keeping it up. And it's kind of strange to me. So, like I'm showing you here before, they had before, is a 1080p too much for Switch 2? And then now today is Star Wars Outlaws too big for Switch 2? Isn't even out yet. And they're telling you that, this game may be too big for Switch 2 based on literally like 6 seconds of footage from an unfinished game that they've literally told you this game won't even come out until September. So what are we doing here? Why are we saying what will and won't run on a system that isn't out, on a game that isn't finished, based on 5 to 6 seconds of footage of a game that isn't a launch game? It's not coming out for 5 months. Like, what are we doing here? And then even trying to guess based on the pixel count or the resolution. How are you pixel counting the resolution on this? It's not even the full screen. It's just some footage that they mapped onto a fake Switch 2 in the middle of the screen, and you're pixel counting that. It's like, talk about not learning your lesson and not reading the room.
Star Wars Outlaws was a visual blockbuster when it arrived last year, applying the ray-traced goodness of the Snowdrop engine to the famous sci-fi franchise. But it only landed on current-gen consoles and PC, requiring some decent hardware capabilities to run effectively. But the game has just been released on the Switch 2, which has substantially weaker specs. So how does this adventure fare on Nintendo's power-sipping hybrid? Conversely, there are plenty of cases where the lighting looks similar, and even a few where Switch 2 scores a win over Series S. Take this emissive sign for instance. There's a subtle shadow beneath the Switch 2 sign, which is missing on Series S. That trend continues with the game's RT reflections. In a few instances, the Switch 2 version of the game appears to have some specular superiority over Series S. In this hangar, for instance, all this reflective detail basically only exists in screen space on Series S. But on Switch 2, note how there's no holes in the reflection around K, and how the reflections of the barrels persist even when off-screen. Here we see a relatively smooth metal surface reflecting some fairly clear pinpoints of light on Switch 2. Series S has reflections as well, but they're very diffuse in comparison. When you walk through Miragana City, these differences become obvious. Switch 2 has smooth metals that reflect environmental detail more sharply. On materials that appear glossy on all platforms, sometimes Switch 2 will have more obvious, brighter reflections, and the image is sharp. When docked, Outlaws uses DLSS with DRS, with typical resolutions around 720p and an output res of 1440p. Series S, in contrast, operates between 720p and 1080p internally, with an output at 1440p using FSR. Both look equally sharp and are relatively stable in static shots. Performance is, for the most part, very stable. Expect to see a flat 30 FPS line in most game content, including mission areas, battles, free roam gameplay, and ship sequences. It's remarkably consistent, without any frame pacing problems or other gremlins. Plus, some of the game's menus run at 60 FPS, usually getting there or just slightly falling short. Exceptions are few and far between. This section of Mirogana seems good for repeatable, substantial FPS drop if you sprint through it, but it's an isolated problem. Other areas of Mirogana are fine, and the other cities I sampled also hit 30 FPS without issue. Namely, more efficient RT and machine learning acceleration allow it to punch above its weight in key areas. It's no longer the case that a Nintendo port is just a steep linear downgrade from other contemporary hardware. Those factors, plus a colossal amount of work from Ubisoft Red Links, Berlin, and Massive, helped to make Outlaws the most impressive Switch 2 port to date.
So the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to change game development forever. And so we've known for the last few years that the next Nintendo Switch system, the Nintendo Switch 2, was going to utilize a version of DLSS, thanks in part to yours truly. And we know that the Switch 2 is going to be able to punch way above its weight due to this feature. But what a lot of people don't realize is just how much the Switch 2 is about to change the game. Like, game development on consoles will never be the same after the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, DLSS exists on the PC. PSSR, which is a DLSS-like feature, is on the new PlayStation 5 Pro. But for the first time, games will actually be developed around DLSS, with DLSS in mind, from the ground up, customized for console. And that has never happened before. Imagine a system that's up to 10 times more powerful than the Switch, 12 gigs of freaking RAM, and a highly customized version of DLSS specifically for the system. And the games are designed and created to take complete advantage of DLSS for the first time. This will be the first time that games are being developed strictly around DLSS. These games are going to look incredible. I don't think you guys are ready.